Hello and welcome to Shift the Field TV. I'm super excited to be here with the fabulous Hannah McKitrick. Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
I'll tell you a bit about Hannah in a minute, but first of all, she said a couple times, I wish we were live. And so we're just going to take a moment and take a breath and imagine that we're here live, like side by side.
Mm,
And I'm coming to you from the mountains of Colorado. So I'm just going to imagine us surrounded by mountains, and you've got water over there. So we'll bring
yeah.
some of that
Ocean
in.
over here. Yeah.
Yes. So Hannah is an anti-diet wellness chef and intuitive healer. She's a light bringer. How would I say, these are my words now. Um, she helps bring fun and playfulness into cooking in such a way that your food literally embodies light.
Mhm.
And if you think about, I'm sure we'll get into this, but what you're putting in your body, if you put more light into your body, what difference would that make? A little bit of her formal bio: Crohn's disease, anxiety, depression, disordered eating, and a passion for food led Hannah to help others nourish their bodies while having so much fun. She spent years living in heaviness, at war with her body and mind, which guided her journey to now hold a container that is pure integration of lightness. She brings playfulness into the kitchen so that cooking and healing foods actually feel fun, enjoyable, and delicious. I focus on honoring both your emotional, Hannah focuses on honoring both your emotional and
Oh, that's me.
physical desires so you can live into your authentic, joyful, intuitive health. So I've known Hannah for quite some time, and she came to us with this little business called My Intuitive Health. I remember reading your first website, Hannah, and thinking, this is really good. She's on to something, and this is going to be huge. Here we are. You lead retreats and masterminds. You take people to Italy and really teach them how to have fun in the kitchen. I've personally been in one of your programs where I cooked in my own kitchen and brought the fun and lightness into my food. I've had you guest teach at my event as well. When you hear your bio, and it starts out Crohn's disease, anxiety, depression, and I know that that's been your experience, and I know you have a certain relationship to that. Like when you hear that, how do you feel, or what do you think, given the view you're in?
So, what's present right now is possibility. The possibility that comes when you change the narrative of what's happening in your body through the energy of the food that you're putting into it. And I'm saying this from a place like, it's been 12 years, almost 12 years since I've had a flare up. And I eat like so normally, and I always have cookies in my freezer. And they're homemade cookies, like made with love. It really doesn't affect my physical health. And so as you're saying that, I'm like I don't really have Crohn's anymore. And like it's almost like I feel like not that I've like solved the mystery of the world, but in a way there's this aspect of being the path of least resistance that I'm able to embody for myself and give to others in terms of being healthy in their bodies. And it's a lot simpler than like following a rigid diet, because like I've done that before, and now I'm on to lighter things, you know?
I've done that before and I'm on to lighter things. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask more about that in just a minute.
Sure.
I like to start these interviews out. You're a certified sourced leader. You're
Yes.
someone that delivers transformation in the way that you do your work. What what has that meant to you?
So as a business owner, it's allowing myself to lead from my heart and soul and my body, and not from my logical mind.
Mhm.
Because we have this in common. We're both super, super logical and can figure anything out. And I've found that in my business, figuring out gets me to like step two, and following the magic, my heart, my soul gets me to like step 100 overnight. And I choose that step any day over the first one. And I don't know if I would be leading my business in the way that I am if I hadn't gone through the certified source leader program in honing that skill. So that's on like a personal level. And then on a client level, like I feel like my capacity to hold has expanded like out of this room. And it's like, it feels more like I'm able to guide people in a way that I wasn't maybe before, and really give them a life-changing transformation in a way that feels easy and doable, and like, yeah, like come my way, and like, and we can hold it together, like that co-creation. And so that also feels lighter in business, right? Because we talk about it's not really on our shoulders. It's us, it's the client, it's source, and it's like that co-creation. And that is really helpful for me to be reminded of. Like it's not really me. Like it's a lot of parts working together.
I love that. Hey, come my way and let's see what happens.
Yeah, as Darla likes to say, hey, let's make a container and see what happens or something.
Exactly. Exactly. My vision, as you know, I imagine us walking around, and I use a t-shirt as an example, like wearing your sourced shirt, and you see other people wearing their sourced shirts, and you look at them and you're like, oh, yeah, you're my people. We get it. Right. And then imagine there's more and more people in that consciousness.
Mhm.
What difference would that make for you? What do you see possible?
I see a lot more authenticity and openness, the types of conversations that source leaders have with each other and that we're then able to bring to our clients. It's like nothing's off limits, and you can just say what's so without it being so dramatic. It's just like, hey, like I'm noticing this in your pattern with food. Like, what do you notice? And they're not like lashing out at you. They're like, oh, like, and it opens a level of intimacy in that conversation where you don't have to shove things under the rug or hide from anything. Like you can kind of just put it out all out onto the table and know that it will be held with compassion and grace instead of like scrutinized or whatever. And especially with in the food world too, like everyone has such a story that usually is woven with shame and with food. And so to be able to bring all of that and put it on the table and remove the shame and the guilt and all of that stuff is like a micro example of what it's like to be in interaction with other source leaders. It's like you can bring anything to the conversation and have it be okay. And it's like we find ourselves saying time and time again, like, where else can you talk about this? And the answer is like nowhere, just with us. So yeah.
Yeah. So if there were more of that, more authenticity, more freedom to be yourself in more places, what might change? Like if we collectively have a magic wand, which obviously we do.
I would say deeper connections. Yeah, we obviously do. Yeah. Yeah, deeper connections and more freedom within yourself, because it's like how much time me personally like used to spend putting up shields and like hiding like this part and that part, and you can't see this part and you can't see that part, and like filtering yourself through your mind into other people, and taking that away allows more freedom.
That's beautiful. When you think about food and the relationship to food, and I've talked some about my own journey with this being really heavy as a kid and having that be really the main thing people talked about when they talked about me, which seems so bizarre, right? To me now.
People are bizarre. Yeah.
Um, but when you think about food and whole, you said being held with compassion and grace. How did you learn that for yourself? And what are you seeing happen for your clients as you bring that?
Well, I'll say first for my clients, because that's where I thought of first. Like one of the things I do is I lead a retreat. The most simple thing that happens is that people come on that retreat, they share what they're going through with food, and 10 other people raise their hand and say, me too. And then instantly it like neutralizes the experience, and it takes away the intense like shame and energy around that experience. And it's like, oh, other people have this too. Oh my gosh. And then it just, it fizzles out. I'm realizing
Mm.
I'm using my hands. People probably can't see, but I see it visually. It just dissipates a bit and like brings in this calmness and this acceptance to that shared human experience, you know?
It makes me think of the quote, which I know you've probably heard me say often, that as a human being, we can't accept a part of ourselves that we haven't shared with another human being and had validated rather than violated.
Mhm.
I'm thinking so many people have had their choices with food violated in some way. And so I'm hearing you say it's like the people raising their hand and saying me too is a sort of validation
Mhm.
that allows for healing, allows for acceptance.
Yeah, it's like bringing community into this experience that feels so isolating for you in your head, and then bringing, yeah, like linking arm in arm with people and making it not isolating anymore.
So you take people to Italy to do that. And,
So,
and I'm just thinking like, even, eating together with the intention of being present while you're eating together has to hold such potency,
it
because I
does.
know I've been with people where you can tell they're really uncomfortable eating, or like they're going to justify that they're, you know, sugar free, but they're going to eat the dessert or whatever. Like that there's like an explanation about it in
Mhm.
order to eat, for example. So this is also a two-part question. What made you decide to take people on retreat to Italy? And then what is that collective eating experience like?
Yeah, I'll start with the second part. And so Italy, like people have heard this before. They go to Italy, they are gluten-free, but they're able to eat the pasta. Like people have
Mm.
heard that before. They are correct. And the reason being is that Italians and food, it's their soulmate. And so the energy that the Italians bring into their food, it's woven with such intention and love and care and joy. And then people digest that food. It allows your system to literally digest that food better because food is energy. And so the energy that you bring to it affects how your body digests it. And this might be a nuanced conversation for some people, but the people who will get it will get it. It's cool because it also gives freedom because it's like you have the power and the capability of shifting the energetics of what you're digesting. You get to choose what you're digesting. And so in Italy, we're digesting a ton of love and a ton of pasta without feeling heavy. Like it's crazy. And I do think that also speaks to the community aspect of it. It's like we're sharing conversation, we're sharing connection, and by doing that, by being in community with people, your own personal system is calmer. And so it's like you're not eating from like a fight or flight, you're eating from like a, oh my gosh, like, how good is this? Like, you like this too? And like it's sharing instead of alone in a dark room or whatever.
Talk
Um,
about eating from fight or flight.
yeah. So if you're eating from fight or flight, then your cortisol levels in your body are literally will rise, and then that slows your digestive system. Don't do
Mm.
that if you can.
Right before this interview, I've been had a few Zooms, and I went and got lunch, and very healthy. I had my veggies and all of that, but I was like, okay, I got 15 minutes. Can I do it? I'm like, I cannot shove this food in my mouth and then go talk to Hannah. So
Yeah. Well,
have
actually,
some breaths.
yeah, right before this, I had another call and I had cut an apple and peanut butter to eat beforehand. And I texted this person, I was like, hey, I actually need 5 minutes because like I didn't want to rush eating that. Like I just needed 5 minutes and make my system calm while I was eating. And you asked why Italy too, circling back to your first part of the question. And obviously it's like the food capital of the world. But I also, when I was 23, I quit my job and we talked earlier about following your heart and soul. My heart and soul was like, go to culinary school in Italy. And I was like, are you sure? And it was like, yeah. And so I did that.
Wait, did
And
you have that kind of conversation with your soul back then? Are you sure? Yeah.
my okay, so this conversation was actually pretty clear. It was like go, and I was like, okay. It was between Italy and France, and we decided on Italy, which totally aligns because the Italians are no shame to the French, but the Italians are a bit more like simple ingredients prepared well. The French are more like let's make it complicated, and I don't want to make it complicated. So
That tracks.
um, yeah. So I went to Italy, to southern Italy for this culinary program. And it, like, the way I describe it to people is that I would wake up every day and it would be the best day of my entire life. And then I'd go to sleep and wake up again and like on repeat for 3 months. It was a combination of the view. It was on the Ionian Sea, like 360-degree view or 180, whatever.
I'm guessing they could go to your Instagram and see that view.
You can go to my Instagram. Yeah, it's all over it. You can't miss it. The energy in the kitchen. So the leader of the program, Chef John, who you know of from me, like he brought this. He's the shit. He brought this type of charisma to the kitchen that was infectious. He's actually one of my kind of role models for how I want to hold space in the kitchen for other people. And so the charisma and the entertainment was just so fun. I felt such a deep soul connection to that land itself that I actually got physically sick when I left because I was so sad and I didn't know
We're
if I would.
co-regulated.
I know, and I didn't know if I would be back again. And I even got a tattoo on the back of my neck that says Dolce Vita. I'm not a tattoo person, like whatever, but I got this because I never wanted to forget like that standard of living, like how sweet life could be. When it came down to adding retreats to my own offerings, like it came pretty quickly, that knowing. That's how I started my business. It was like a download from source and it said healthy cooking retreats Italy. And then I
Is
Google.
that the one you argued with?
No, I took action. I Googled how to host a profitable retreat. And then Darla LeDoux comes up and I'm like, oh, okay, who's this chick with the flip chart? And and then here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. So we'll talk a little bit more about Italy in a minute. When you think about nourishment, tell me a little bit about what nourishment means to you and why it's important to entrepreneurs.
Nourishment feels like a hug to yourself, like a hug to yourself. And I like to think of it in three parts: nourishment for your mind, nourishment for your body, and nourishment for your soul. I think that this is really important for entrepreneurs because you have to bring your body with you with whatever you're doing. In this day and age, like, the internet will tell you how to eat, and it's usually wrong for how you should eat.
It
So
just
bringing
depends on the week, right?
yeah, it's like I heard this quote once. It was like the perfect diet for you probably doesn't have a name because
Mhm.
everyone is so different. So a lot of times I see entrepreneurs put their physical health on the back burner, right? Because they're like, let me just serve my clients, let me just do this. And for me, I'm like, nourishing your body is what keeps your vessel clear. You talk a lot, obviously, about magic and intuition, and it's like, well, if you want to be able to hear that more clearly and more with a vigor and a knowing, it's like nourish your body, like bring vibrancy to your body, bring foods that have vitality, like whole foods and vegetables and stuff like that, so that you can actually have a clearer access to your intuition. So that's like the physical health. And then it's like what you're feeding your mind as well is crucial for how you run your business, because it's like we all get stuck in our, I mean, I get stuck in my head, I'll speak for myself. It's a very intentional act of feeding my mind positive thoughts. And so nourishing yourself as an entrepreneur also means, like, I would say simply like hyping yourself up and like bringing that lightness into your mind as well as your body.
I'm thinking of when you got the download to host retreats, might have been right about the time I was working my sourced energy words of nurture and nourish. So,
Really?
yeah.
That's cool.
Uh-huh. I
Yeah.
love that word. It just makes me like It does feel like a hug.
It's a hug, yeah. And especially in something where people battle with so much, like with the food and their selves and their minds, like that is something that deserves to be brought a hug, you know?
Yes. Oh, I love it. When you think about being sourced and helping people connect to their inner knowing with food, how how does this work of bringing light and play to food and cooking help people maintain their own alignment, tap into their inner knowing? Like, how are those things connected?
Yeah. So tapping into their own inner knowing through alignment. So when you're in alignment, your inner knowing is so much easier to tap into. I like to, again, like I feel like some people hear alignment and they're like, that's it's like a buzzword these days. And it's like, well, how do I actually do that? And so I kind of like to take a trifecta of alignment and bring the mind, body, soul into that. And so obviously my vessel is food and cooking. And instead of making a meal that's like broccoli and unseasoned salmon, I like to really drive home the mind experience as well and the soul into the food that is healthy for you. And so by bridging flavor with the whole foods and the vegetables, it creates a more intuitive experience for entrepreneurs to tap into that alignment without feeling like they're forcing themselves into something, but rather they just love it and they want to keep doing it because it feels really good on their in their body. And like their family's like, oh my God, can you make that dish that like healthy cooking lady helped you make? And they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of two things. One is, I think I told you I learned about sauce from you and the way you put flavor in sauce and then the roasting and of course, the smoked paprika. I knew that was going to ding. Um, and the smoked paprika on the vegetables, like, so I love it. I'm also thinking of when I took your program, I cooked a couple of times with friends and relatives and like really was able to bring that experience to other people. And I'm curious how you've seen that because I know other people have done the same. You've, brought families and partners and all of that into the kitchen.
Mhm.
And I'm just tying that to the love in the food in Italy. And yeah, what's been your experience with that? Because I feel it's mostly women that go on retreat with you, right?
Mhm.
And yet when they're cooking at home, people are bringing all kinds of people into the class.
Yeah,
Share
well,
about that.
it's interesting because it's twofold. So one is what you were talking about with involving people in their home in the kitchen. And that it's almost like how you talk about everyone wearing source t-shirts. It's like everyone is in this experience and they get it. They get that like, yeah, I don't usually like Brussels sprouts, but the way that we did it tonight, like this is amazing. Let's have this on repeat. And so it's like this shared experience that they just get and they don't have to explain to anyone. And then the other piece is that a lot of the people that come through my programs actually live alone or are empty nesters. So for them to do the virtual class in a virtual community, it actually gives that community shared connection aspect when they might not have otherwise had that. And I live alone, and so I know what it's like to like not want to necessarily make like a coq au vin like meal just by yourself. Like tonight, like I'm probably gonna have some frozen soup or something. I don't know, but like bringing in the people to your home
I
without
like how that's even on the table for you. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
it's the French. That's why we don't study in France. But
When you think about travel and retreat and the benefit of that, we've kind of touched on it, but why is that so important to you? Why do you think, and as you're talking about people who live alone and maybe, are cooking for themselves, why is it so important to get out of your environment and travel abroad?
yeah, so part of the like sneaky work that I do, the back door or whatever, is helping people to enter into their next level, their next up level, their next level of vibration. For someone stepping into that, it's a big commitment. And part of that commitment is saying yes to going on an international retreat to Italy with people that you don't know. And that just helps to prime them for this up level that they're about to be going through. And so part of the magic of the retreats is just, as you know, like saying yes to it. Because when you're saying yes to an international retreat, we're like, with someone like me who, you know, whatever you met on the internet, probably, it takes a big level of commitment, and one that only the people who are ready to see those results of who they get to be, who they become by traveling like that, by saying yes to that experience. The other part is that this is like basic retreat stuff, but it rips you out of your home environment and puts you in a community of like-minded souls who are gonna, like we said earlier, validate back to you that like you're okay. And that's something that it's so simple, but it's not really integrated into our everyday life of people just hearing you share and then validating you. And so
Right. They either want to fix you or have something else that sounds smart
or
or
judge you, or yeah, the retreat, I mean, it's magical. And I feel like one of the things in my retreat too, it's talking about nurture. Like, you, from the second you step off the plane, you don't have to lift one finger. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it's full service, like all inclusive, and it's designed to wow people with like 10-course meals with wine pairings and excursions. And people don't necessarily give themselves that type of nurturing in their everyday life, especially like people who have families or grown kids or live alone. It's like, how can I justify all of this luxury? But it's like the transformation that people go through. It's like, well, how can you not if you're going to exit a lighter, more vibrant you know? And so giving yourself that experience of being truly, truly nurtured is invaluable.
what is it that you're bringing? You know, I heard you talk about holding the space in the kitchen. You've talked about the energy of the food and putting love and light in the food. And
Okay.
there's a certain way that you're doing your work that's distinct, that
Yeah.
someone who just meets you on the internet may or may not consciously know what
Yeah.
they're
Totally. I have my
stepping
hand.
into.
The people that step into my container have a soul pull, and they know that I'm the person that's going to help them co-create their next level of expansion. And so their soul knows that. And then they meet me, and I'm in my 30s, but I kind of look like I'm 16, and you know, that's fine. But they're like, what? Like, what? Like, and so it sometimes, I'm not trying to like project this onto anyone, but sometimes people can get into a little internal conflict of like, I know that this is my next level of growth and expansion, but like, what? Like, and so there maybe, like, in my head, there could be some dissonance there. A lot of the women I work with are middle to later age, and their soul knows that like this is the type of playfulness and lightheartedness that they want to step into in this next act of their life. Because life, like, what, like, why keep being serious? That's not fun.
Well, it's interesting because this idea of like your next up level
Right.
can feel kind of serious or like significant. And it is. Like, I've watched people go on your retreat and come back and be in a whole different vibration. And so it's significant. And then
Mhm.
at the same time, there's something about, well, let's just go cook in Italy and see what happens, right? That makes it feel lighter and approachable. So
Yeah.
if someone's watching and they're thinking, I want my next level, what would you say about that? What's your guidance?
Part of the reason, I'm totally biased and partial to my program, but part of the reason why I like it so much is because I'm personally a self-growth junkie. Like, I love growing and expanding and looking at my shadows and all of that stuff. The way that I bring people into expansion isn't, we don't spend too much time in the shadows. Like, we'll spend maybe like 10, 20% there. And the rest of it is just having fun. And it's like in the process of like going on retreat in Italy and cooking and have like going to wineries and having fun, that is where the healing comes from. I feel like it's a kind of cool self-growth hack to like, I mean, we're not going around the shadow because we do hold space for that for sure, but it's more focused on integrating the lightness and the fun instead of like beating a something on a something. Whatever. I think it's a horse, beating a horse. I don't know.
Not the horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what, the word that's coming to me, which we use a lot here, as you know, is potency.
Mm,
And so you can go there, but go there with potency
totally.
and not have to spend a lot of time kind of recycling or trudging through the shadow.
Totally. And I like that you said potency because I was having a conversation with someone before this and we were talking about my work and she's a healer in this field and she was like, "Oh yeah, like do you bring reverence to like each ingredient that you use during your class?" And I was like I got an instant like visual and it was like, no, like you don't have to go that granular. You can just bring it up here. It's like that potency, right? It's like bringing the intention into the whole meal instead of like each specific, like that's one way to do it. It's like each specific ingredient, giving it reverence, honoring where it came from, and bringing that groundedness into yourself. Or you can kind of just go up here and pew, bring the light to it, as you say.
I resonate with that.
Yeah, yeah,
Potency and vibration is present for me. Obviously, we talk about magic here at Sourced, and there's 6 types of sourced magic. And if people want to learn theirs, they can check out the quiz, which I am sure is below this video, or sourcedexperience.com/quiz. What I'm present with is vibration magic, which is your primary, I know, and potency, and how that ability to work with the vibration of something feels, I don't want to call it a shortcut, though it is, but it's like, talk about how you've learned to harness your vibration magic, because it's something, you know, I don't believe that I help people get their magic, or, and it's like it's already there, you have it, but you might be an unconscious competent at magic, at vibe. So for you, Hannah, at shifting the vibration of things,
right.
or reading the vibration of things, and then becoming conscious of it and being able to actually know that that's what you're selling. How has
Yeah,
that made a difference?
I'll give two examples. One, I'll start with food because food's yummy. Each class, I do a different recipe and I make it from, I was going to say from my head, but it's not actually my head. It's from my vibration magic. And so I intuitively know what ingredients go together, how much to add of them. And like I literally feel the meal based on the group that is going to be cooking it.
I just want to say that again, like that. And this is why it's magic, right? But it's intuition and it's reading energy. So you're picking up the group who's
Yeah,
coming,
right.
and the how maybe heavy or light, how vibrationally high or
Yeah.
low different ingredients are, and bringing them together in a way that's a match for the group to up level.
Yes. Like I can feel it in my system when it clicks and when it's like, yes. And I can feel it when it doesn't click. And maybe there's like one or two classes where I'm like, oh, it could have been better. But most of them, the people that receive it are getting exactly what they need to from that dish. And a lot of the times it is lightness and nurturing and flavor and heartiness. I think about this sometimes because I obviously have different tastes from people, but time and time and time and time and time again, on the other side of the screen with people in the classes, they think it's the most amazing meal. And it's like, well, I don't like it. There's something higher happening than them just liking the food. It's them bringing this type of high vibe energy into the food that was created from a high vibration recipe, whatever maker. So that's one answer. The second
Well,
one,
I've
yeah.
never heard you say it like that before. So I'm like really geeking out over here
I'm
at
in a
how
mood
cool that
tonight,
is.
so
That's so awesome. Well,
yeah.
because when you think about my intuitive health, there's I guess where my mind goes is, checking in. Does my body want this? Does it not? Like that kind of thing. but you're literally giving people an experience and a practice of ingesting what's intuitively right by
Exactly.
borrowing your intuition.
It's like exactly. So it's like my recipe is their framework for their intuition. And so I'm always like, don't take my word for it. Like, this is how I like my squash cooked, but like, here's why, and here's what you could change to make it how you like it cooked. Like, it's trivial in a way because it's food, but really it's a microcosm for people to actually check in and be like, well, like, how do I want my squash cooked? And really hone and develop both their intuition and their intention with their food.
Yeah. And I just love how committed you are to trusting that and how much you're in your leadership and ownership of that.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah, tell people about how they can retreat with you next. I know you have a class coming up. One of the reasons I wanted to talk with you because your classes are so potent and such a good way to start the new year. So just share how people can work with you.
Yeah, so I have a 9-week virtual program called Cookwell, where we really bring everything that I've been talking about tonight and give you an embodied experience from your own kitchen of these step-by-step classes. I also have a mastermind, Embody Your Light mastermind, that brings this to the next level of your up level. And that is a 4-month program with virtual cooking classes and coaching calls, and ends with a retreat in southern Italy in May. All of those are on my website, myintuitivehealth.com. And then for people who are like, who's this stranger on the internet? I have like a really fun bite-size offer for you, which is called Nourish Your New Year. And this is a cooking to create class of the intentional energy that you want to bring into your new year, into your health, into your business, whatever it might be. And we're just going to play with bringing that into the foods that we're cooking, see how that can expand for you. So that is going to be on January 17th and is also on my website.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll put the link below this video as well, but myintuitivehealth.com, and they'll be able to easily find that class on the 17th as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Hannah. Anything you want to leave people with?
Just have fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. Eat good food. Always eat good food. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing your magic. Love
Thank
you.
you. I love you.
Bye, everyone.